Hi, everybody. Welcome to the launch party for Volume 8, Issue 1. I can't believe that this means we've completed 7 years of issues at Chestnut Review. So our 8-1 issue came out on July 15th, and we're here with some of our staff and our lovely contributors to celebrate their work and really talk about, them. So our first piece is by John Vianney. It's called Rebellious Kid, and it is an art piece. So I think the only challenge here is that I have to actually read this artist statement while also like presenting the piece. So I'm gonna like give you a second to kind of look at it, and I'm gonna try to zoom out a little bit. All right. Um, okay. So, emerging from a past shaped by resistance to conformity, to silence, to surrender. Born with a mind that questioned and a heart that refused to yield, their work is rooted in tension between visibility and obscurity, memory and forgetting, becoming and undoing. In this artwork titled Rebellious Kid, I tell the story of a young African boy who's in motion, a story of survival and standing up to the norms. His expression captures an energy of refusal, resilience, and defiance. The Rebellious Kid is a thought provoking piece that captures the essence of youthful defiance and nonconformity. The artwork depicts a young figure with a bold expression, refusing to conform to societal norms. Through vibrant use of form and dynamic strokes, the piece conveys a sense of energy, frustration, and determination. The artwork explores themes of identity, freedom, and the struggle for individuality in a world that often demands compliance. It invites viewers to reflect on their own relationships with authority and the importance of embracing their unique perspective. All right. So our next piece is by Karen Pierce Gonzalez. I'm going to post this in the chat, and then for your piece, I can actually zoom in because I don't have to also read the artist statement. Yes, perfect. Karen, I think you're still on mute.
Did you want, I thought you were going to read the artist statement. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
Okay,
It
that's fine.
doesn't
I'll read
matter.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I can read the artist statement.
Okay,
Thanks.
cool.
Thanks, Annie. Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, let me just get it. Okay. An intuitive artist, I work with mostly natural materials that capture my attention. I explore the possibilities of combining overlooked textures, colors, and shapes to create unexpected tapestry-like collages on paper. Chamomile, mint, and weeds is part of my weeds, seeds, and tea collage series. This work is a melodic celebration of what so often goes unnoticed. Wild weeds and harvested to be brewed flowers and herbs. Each individually beautiful to me, they worked so well together, forming a texturally visual lyricism that inspired the rest of the series. And for my personal pleasure, they also offered a deliciously scented landscape. The work just doesn't get any better than that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Beautiful.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the reading and thank you for presenting this beautiful work. All right. Um, okay. Next up, we have Relica Conlia with Gravity.
Hello, I'm Raluca, and I'm the first one to read fiction, which is, pretty cool, but also pretty, let's see, a little bit anxious, but not too much. Okay, so I'm gonna look first at the artist statement, and tell you kind of what the collection is all about. So, this piece, Gravity, is part of a story cycle that is entitled And the Flames Will Not Burn You. And it does offer a telescopic view into the fiery people who inhabit 15 apartments. And these apartments make up the Shepherd's Horn block in Little Romania, where the collective culture of the 90s permeates major aspects of their lives. Each apartment story becomes neatly decorated with images that show the readers where to look and how to reflect on the changes that will occur in each household. With the master's hand, the narratorial voice carries the readers from one apartment to the next one, from the ground floor up to the fourth floor, in this instance, leaning on the second floor with the story arc of Gravity. The curtain is pulled back to reveal Florica and Gabriel, mother and son, who skillfully engage with each other and with the rich cultural community that makes up the entire block. So now I will read 600 words, or maybe I'm aiming for 5 minutes, which could cover the entire 900 word piece. What does everybody
Yeah.
think? Should I aim for about 5 minute read or
Usually,
less?
I think usually the flash writers read their full pieces.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Yeah, this is 600, but then the whole flash. Yeah, I think we're gonna do it in 5 minutes. Yes. Okay. So Florica, an old widow and retired high school physics teacher, lives on the second floor of an apartment overlooking the only garden shared by the occupants of the Shepherd's Horn block. Florica lives alone, and she is 98 years old. I say lives because she still does, but she will die in the spring. The firemen will get inside the apartment by breaking her balcony window. Once in, this man dressed in red will unlock the front door for the ambulance team to rush in and check the dead woman's vitals, pronounce her dead, and carry her heavy body outside. The intense flavor of the hearty chicken paprikash, recently removed from the gas stove by the old woman, will reach the firemen's nostrils. They will go into the kitchen and stare into the pot filled with meat, seared onions, sweet paprika, and tomato sauce. They will feel shame at the state of their growing appetite when there's a dead body in the next room. All this time, Florica's dining room TV set will replay a Turkish soap opera on the small square screen. I tell you this so that you know that Florica's heart will stop beating. It will be written on her death certificate. Until then, Florica lives alone, cooks stew, and beautifies the communal garden of the Shepherd's Horn apartments. No one from the building tends to the communal flowery garden. It is in Florica's hands to clean the soil, pull the weeds out, shower the flowers with her yellow metal watering can, speak to them, admire them. The occupants of the building admire Florica's dedication to flowers, while at the same time they talk about the things that she throws outside from her kitchen window, such as chicken bones, potato peels, even newborn kittens. A spectacular show of gravity offered at no cost to them, generating the much-needed commentary to fill in an otherwise dull, uneventful day for them. The only visitor is her son, a dreamy blue-eyed man who paints and teaches mathematics of a higher level. Gabriel approaches the entryway to the Shepherd's Horn, but never puts out his cigarette, to the astonishment of the building's occupants. The man puffs and climbs stairs to the second floor to reach apartment 7, which belongs to his mother. He comes in on Sunday to honor her as God commanded. He brings her groceries in hemp bags and checks the home plumbing. With the groceries, she will cook paprikash. I tell you this so that you prepare for Florica's inevitable death in the spring. Once inside the apartment, the occupants see him smoking by the windowsill. His mama's voice pierces through. Well, dear, a lie is still a tale to tell. There is silence, and his head tilts away from the window into the kitchen. The thick smoke wraps around the man's round head and finds its way out into the general atmosphere. Florica insists he quit the cigarettes, else she'd have to bury him. And wouldn't that be ironic? He puts the cigarette out, and the mother finds calmness. The white and red Marlboro pack falls into the communal garden. The occupants watch it touch ground, but they know Gabriel will pick it up on his way out from his mother's. Last Sunday, when he left, two little girls were playing make-believe dinner party by the entryway. They played the poor kids game on green grass, leaves for serving plates, small rocks, acorns, and torn paper for caviar and manchego, their own spit for soup, spring flowers for storytelling. When they saw Gabriel exiting the building, one of the girls turned to him in earnest and asked, "Do you love your mother?" "I don't have to. The Lord didn't command me so." Gabriel grew up an only child in a household filled with cousins and nephews from the many uncles on his mother's side. He would hear her say to one of his cousins, an adolescent girl pale in the cheeks who battled her own sprouting identity, "Depressed about what? When I was your age, I got hit with a brick and I took that brick and built an altar with it." Or when the kids would gather on the rug to watch a post-revolution show broadcasted from the West, she would say, "I'm glad I'm not God or everyone would go to hell." Or when the kids would talk back to adults or shrug their shoulders when asked a question, she'd hit them on the temple with her wedding ring. You don't know until you start wanting it, and after that, you know. Her wedding ring hurt. Why I tell you this? So that you understand why Gabriel comes on Sunday to check his mother's home plumbing system. You see, way back when Gabriel's father was alive and Gabriel himself was a baby, this apartment flooded. Florica was upstairs, arranging her hair, adding pearl pins to her locks. Downstairs, the water was rising, and father grew desperate by the minutes. He threw all the white towels to the floor to absorb the water. When the white towels gave away, he filled up buckets of flood water until no more buckets. Gabriel's father had to drink the flood water to keep the baby alive. At last, Florica came fluttering down the stairs in her wedding dress, radiant and gazing upon Gabriel's father. He was already dead. He collected all the remaining water in his belly. And this Sunday, because his father died from water overconsumption, Gabriel came to check his mother's home plumbing system. But Sunday is just another day for Florica. She's getting her grocery filled. She gets to tap into that old desire to nag a man. Gabriel kisses his mother on both cheeks and walks out of the apartment. She announces hot stew for next week. I'll make paprikash on Sunday. Florica locks the door behind her, and Gabriel lights another cigarette before he exits the block and is greeted by two little girls who are preparing a dinner party on the grass. Thank you.
A great reading. Really made the piece come alive. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad that you read the whole thing. Yes, it's really beautiful. Yeah, I know, like this is a food moment. Guys, sounds very good. Yes. Next up is Chelsea Guo with an excerpt from Seedlings.
Yeah, okay. Hello everyone. So I'm Chelsea, and I'm really excited to share this reading of this piece that I worked on for quite a while. So yeah, I'm really excited. Okay. Infection, growth, illness. The doctor is not sure what to call this. The seedlings growing in my father's body, seeking purchase by his veins. It's completely unprecedented, he says, a clipboard clenched tight in his hands. He has no answers for us except that my father is dying. All the things that the seedlings growing in him require, sunlight, water, food, are things my father needs to survive as well. When he emerges from a set of sterile white curtains, dwarfed in his hospital gown, I see a field of seedlings coiled like watercolor on his back. Even in the placid hospital air, they move, as if being brushed back and forth by an invisible hand, endowed to a mind none of us own. While we wait for the doctor to come back, I ask him what it feels like to be a host body, flesh in service of another. My mother slaps me and tells me not to be so gruesome. She sends me outside as the doctor pokes and prods at him, but before I leave, I turn around and witness the doctor shining a light down my father's throat, the seedlings grinning at me from the gaps between his teeth, and the spit that slicks into dew. As I stand under the food pyramid, someone nudges me on the shoulder. Between the dairy and meat, I meet Kathy. Is your father also dying? I ask her. She frowns, but corrects herself quickly. As I soon learn, Kathy is a volunteer assigned to work with my father. She is good at it. Always she hides her volunteer hour log sheet behind a mountain range of applesauce and cherry jello cups, so I won't see, her pencil moving in flat strokes. The plants have begun to grow from his collarbones. Today, his blood was 20% chlorophyll. My father has 4 sisters, I tell her one day when we are both waiting in line for the water cooler. They all blame my mother for his situation. Kathy looks confused and tells me that the seedlings don't seem to be contagious, and besides, my mother has never shown any symptoms. No, I say, they think she drained him until nothing but the earth could fill him up. That's not how it works, though, she protests, and I want to shove the words back in my mouth. You're right, I agree, and Kathy nods, her eyes wide and calculating. I recognize this look. She's trying to dissect me. I have become one of her patients, and I can sense her pity. Warm, wet, something she is sloughing over me like a blanket. It would take too long to explain to Kathy that my mother is simply the host, in my auntie's eyes, of everything wrong with America. Her wide swinging hips, her silt blood, her inability to produce a son to carry on their last name. And besides, I'm not sure I want Kathy to know, to understand this inheritance of guilt. At the front of the line, Kathy hands me a cup and watches as I bring it to my lips, a divot creasing the inside of the paper cup as it softens with water. Only then does she depart for her next patient, once she is satisfied that I have changed my mind. In these 5 minutes, something has changed. Perhaps because it seems easier than curing my father, Kathy wants to cure me now, and I want to let her. Okay, that's my excerpt.
I thank you so much, Chelsea, with a beautiful reading. This is an incredible story, so I really encourage you to go off and read the rest of it and see how it goes. Yeah, I think that we have a poet who is not here, so I will see if he's going to come. If he doesn't, then we can read his work at the end. So, Alec, I think that means you're next. So this is Aglis with an excerpt from Daddy's Boy.
Okay, hello everybody. Happy to be here. I'm gonna read the top excerpt with the artist statement, and I'll jump down to the paragraph I'm gonna read. But okay, so desire is fundamental to our existence. It's how we're all here. For queer individuals without healthy support systems, however, desire can sometimes turn destructive. A belief that one right hookup will erase years of loneliness, shame, and trauma. These attempts at quick fixes can come at a cost. Daddy's Boy seeks to explore these patterns of self-destruction while also offering a reminder that cycles can be broken. So I picked this kind of excerpt towards the end where it starts like it's called this wave of twisted desire. So this wave of twisted desire, the son Toby wished he had and the loving father I always wanted overlapping like an eclipse. I could see us setting up an arrangement, meeting together once or twice a week to do just this. Hold each other too tight in this dead kid's bed, hoping that if we squeezed each other hard enough, all of our pain would move behind us, that we could make up for all the lost love we never gave and never received. I had to get the fuck out of here.
Okay, just leave him wanting more. Oh my God, great reading. Thank you so much. What a great selection. Yeah, I really enjoyed editing the story. And I like just when it came in the queue, just like, okay, this is I don't even know what. So I hope that everybody can go off and finish reading this. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, Jess, you're up next with How to Be a Fig Wasp.
Hi. I'm just gonna jump into it. This is How to Be a Fig Wasp. 1. Abuela's fig tree came with the house, planted by the previous owner, a ghost whose garden still grows. When I was a girl, I spent summers picking fallen figs from the ground with Abuela, bringing the best ones inside for her to slice or turn into jam. The ones we found cracked and trampled, we scooped into a bucket and tossed into the woods for the coyotes to collect. I was reminded to gather them with caution. The softest fruits are home to mold and other dangerous things. Fig season runs from late spring to the end of summer. As I grow older, I visit Abuela less and less. On the rare occasions I make it to her house, figs litter the ground. Bees swarm the decomposing carcasses, and ants crawl carrying away crumbs of sweet. I tow carefully around the waste and rot. Tell myself I am not the only one to leave things as they are. 2. When I walk into her home, Abuela is sitting at the kitchen table, a place of arroz con gandules, chicken, and tortillas. She always offers too much. Last time I was here, we were both crying, mourning her son. The room is smaller than I remember. She greets me with a smile, pulls me into her arms, and kisses my head. The clean scent of coconut oil cuts through old grief. I hold her with the gentleness she taught me to use when picking figs, knowing something delicate lies underneath the skin. She asks how I've been, and we fall into a familiar routine, my tongue rolling over the conversation in half Spanish, half English, licking my lips and finding the most unique sweet shame. She always refuses to accept my gratitude, so I praise her the only way I know. I finish my plate. Gracias, adios. 3. While Abuela does the washing, I offer to sweep the mess in her yard.
grab the bucket, and greet the scent of sun-baked fruit and light. I tread through the pulp, cringing each time my foot sinks into earth with a grotesque crunch and squish. My fingers sting right away, a soft blush on my hands. The bucket is filled only halfway when I see the fig, unbroken and perfectly ripe, lying in the grass. I look around, unreasonably paranoid that I am reaching for something I shouldn't touch. Abuela has told me stories of hungry girls and greedy tongues. Warning muttered into the summer breeze as she held me up to reach the fruit hanging from the lowest branches. Yes, I'm familiar with figs and their wasps. 4. The mother wasp forces herself inside the fig, following the scent of not quite ripe fruit to the fleshy room where she makes her bed. In the process, she will crush the soft-stemmed antennae mistletoed above her head, the senses of her stripped in her desire to make a home of a headstone. She is grounded, the silk of her wings torn off. Her skeleton lives outside of her body. This is where she went wrong. There is no protection from instinct, the violence already churning in her abdomen. She does not pray, she has no language. Yet still, she hears her children whisper, "Please let us go. Please let us go. We will make something of your rotten flesh when you no longer can. Leave your sorrows in the shells of us." She dies, and when the children hatch, they will not know what to make of the fragile mess before them, a half-consumed thing. They will leave where the light streams in. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Nothing happened here at all. 5. I cup the fig in my sticky hands, careful of everything precious that may lie within. I bring it inside, showing it to Abuela, who is the only one who understands why I care so much for dead things. I do not need to explain to her the sacrifice that comes with love. Paper towel on the counter, sharpest knife in hand. I slice the fruit in half, the purple skin parting to reveal red and pink and orange, colors bleeding into one another, everything eating everything else, alive like a heart. I suppose there are worse places to die than in the shelter of something so dark and beautiful. I drag a finger through the soft insides, searching for a body just like Abuela taught me. It's been a fear of mine since I was young, sinking in teeth to find a stinger in my tongue. The fig has long since eaten what lived inside, but I know the blood of the fruit holds generations of sacrifice still. We each grab a piece, and I can't break away from her dark stare as we bring the sweet thing to our lips and bite down. Flashback to every summer night split open with her bare hands. All that love lives inside me now. 6. Gracias a Dios. Thanks.
Jess, what a beautiful reading. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to be part of this piece. All right. So we have a poem that's going to be read by Mohammed. It's by Samuel A. Batiku, and it's called Evensong.
Okay,
Yes.
it's raining at my end, and I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you well, Mohammed.
All right. Emun Song. The poem arrives at evening, out on the porch, as the distant mountain slowly loses its details, as the August sky bats its all in the gray light and drizzle, the wind lifting the silvery underbelly of leaves. I take this bowl of steaming ogi like an antidote for the pensive air, blow on the silky crown of cream between mouthfuls to make it gentle on the tongue. A smattering of hawks scream past. The even song of a cathedral comes to me from afar. How much God we have swallowed to bear the heat of this sitting country. How unholy the expanse, and still the leathery sun is tethered in the dance of teeth. To be simply held by something simple, this porch and the world turning loose, In an orchestra of rain, a mammoth silhouette sits in place of the mountain, the shadows steeping us until down, when our poles open wide and wings take to the air, we can hear everything sing. What is living but motion? What is a place but a loose rein on the horses of your breath? Like light, what is left of the poem is want. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. It's beautiful reading. Um, all right. I don't think that Kadon could make it. This is a short poem called The First Fist. Elijah bolted 3 tires together to make a poor man's punching bag, stood arm's length from rubber, bounced the balls of his feet, and thought about fins, stretching into fingers. Who made the first fist, and what did they do with it? All right, thank you all for reading. We hope that you have enjoyed the issue and the process. So we're going to move into our second half, which is like our little Q&A. So please feel free to unmute and ask questions. So we've got one of our readers here, Rama. We've got 2 of our poetry team members, Michael and Mohammed. Similar is from our communications team, and then Annie is from the prose team. And right now I'm the acting interim prose editor. So that's why the prose people have probably interfaced with me a little bit more than the poets and the artists. Yeah.
I would just like to comment on the format that Jessica used for her piece. I thought it was really brilliant, and I loved the repetition of adios, goodbye. I liked the way that pulled the strings of it all together. Really nicely done. It's not really a question, it's a comment. So, there you go.
Thank you. I really wanted to focus on kind of like the segmenting, almost like the body of like a wasp, and also like you said, like being able to have that little repetition. It helps me with the rhythm too. I love just making language poetic, and I feel like
Yeah.
it's all about the rhythm for me. So yeah.
I just have one question now, but based on what you just said. There's five category. There's 5 blocks of content, correct? And there's 5 stages of grief. Very brilliant. Yeah, nice. Very nice.
Something that I was really struck by was Chelsea's piece. I couldn't help like feeling some like threads between mine and her work. And uh, yeah, maybe that's more of a comment too. But I really loved this juxtaposition of this like uh, maybe not juxtaposition, but these similarities between like these threads of shame, the paternal and the maternal, between our works. I don't know. See, hearing them as soon as I was hearing it being read, I was like, wow, I really resonate with a lot of what's being said here.
Yeah, I definitely agree too. Like, I think the themes are really strong. Like, and I really like seeing like how they kind of reflect each other. I feel like it's really interesting to go back and forth and kind of read them together.
That was definitely one of the things. So like when we do our process, like you all were probably on the short list for at least some amount of time. We always talk about the resonances that have come up because we don't have themes, we're just looking for really good work. But that was something that we definitely pointed out, that like seedlings and fig wasps seem to be on this continuum of the sort of generational carrying of things, and then this twisting of like fig wasp isn't really a speculative piece, but there's something almost speculatively unreal about the way that the wasp's sort of symbiosis with a fig is portrayed, that really does seem reminiscent of this, like, what the heck is happening to this father character in Seedlings, right? It's just so that was something where we like we're definitely seeing some resonances, and then especially with gravity, like the way that gravity's form pulls on these everyday threads, right? Because the scene that's happening on the page is just like, hey, I'm going up to visit my mother. And like, she's just doing things, puttering around her apartment where she's lived for like this long, long time. But then with these flash forwards of like this kind of death or this notice of grief to come, I think is really strong. And then if you couldn't tell from Alex's excerpt, Daddy's Boy is also about like grief in a way that I think is really brilliant because it's not some of the standard things that we see with grief, which is just a person who's experienced grief, either in fiction or creative nonfiction. So that was something that we were really thinking about when we put the issue together and when we select the pieces that we're going to edit and publish.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying, the threads through all of them. I just want to jump in for a second. Visually, for me, this particular collage series that I did is about what happens after death. Because everything in that is something that has died and seems to have no more purpose, right? And I mean, weeds, right? Old tea flowers, but it's the same idea of the life and death and then life again. It doesn't stop when the breath stops. So I think there's that thread as well with it all. And the gorgeous opening art piece of the young boy. I mean, we don't know where he is in his life death cycle, but it is bleak, but it's also hopeful. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, Karen, I was going to comment on your piece too, because like again, I feel like this idea of taking just traditional like weeds that are viewed as burdensome, that they're, ruining yards, that they're not meant to exist, and taking them and making it into this beautiful piece. I feel like that definitely connects a lot of even like I see a lot of like familial grief throughout all of the pieces, but still
Yes.
taking that and making that into something beautiful or something to learn from. Like I didn't leave a lot of these pieces feeling completely like hopeless or that, oh my gosh, like this grief is extremely burdensome. Like I left reading,
Yeah.
kind of feeling somewhat hopeful, kind of with yours, especially too. So,
Thank you. And in a collage, everything works together. Everything is having the same experience in its own space of death and life and rebirth. And I loved in your piece that putting the hand in the bed. That was great. That was really, really very effective. Sorry to switch to that, but I wanted to comment on that. Thank you.
I have a question for Raluca. One of the
Yes.
I really enjoyed reading this piece again was the sort of interjections from the narrative voice. The sort of like, here's why I'm telling you this. And I'm wondering what was the thought process like when you were creating this character of the narrator? Where did that come from? Who's sort of separate from the figures in the story? Where did that come from for you? And sort of how did you kind of develop that personality as you were writing?
All right. Well, thank you so much, Annie, for asking that. As you know, apartment 7 is one story in the collection, right? So we have 15 apartments in a block, and I have it set in such a way that the collection itself opens with the narratorial voice, and that voice establishes itself as being kind of like the building becomes a character in itself, and the entryway is the one that leads the readers through little break chapters that I'm calling interludes. And in each interlude, the interlude is basically the stairwell that takes you into each ground level. And in the interlude is where the narrator comes in a poetry type of form and announces the theme in or the character or whatever the driving of the plot is in each piece, and establishes that voice. And then in poem piece, and then as you walk into each apartment for each floor, then the apartment opens, and then it's something from the narratorial voice that keeps interjecting into each little piece. But then my POV changes. It's shifting from apartment to apartment to allow for kind of more it's a telescopic view, so it's an experimental thing. But yeah, I'm actually playing with the building as a character itself, and that's actually how it all begins. I do believe that the prologue is the one that becomes the grounding work and does the heavy lifting for all this collection ultimately, because that's where you read the entryway and everything kind of comes to a sense in each apartment, even if the stories are completely, different. But they're all based on little Romania of the 90s in which I grew up, the collective culture and, the collapse of communist system and how that affected us and the revolution and the bloody things and the radio and the spying and all that. So every little apartment, it's decorated with that. Thank you, Annie.
Yeah,
And
that's
yeah.
really cool. I would love to read this whole cycle one day. So please keep us updated on the other pieces from this cycle and where they end up. And if there's ever an opportunity to read the all of it as a whole, I'd love to do that.
Thank you so much. That's great to hear. Yes, that's great to hear. And I was thinking of a little. I'm kind of jumping off, but kind of connecting to what others have said, the readers, Karen and Chelsea. And I thought about you guys mentioned some recurrent things and themes, and I'm also interested in recurrent images when it comes to how we as writers. I know the word recycle doesn't have a too much of a good reputation, but I think it's so lovely. We recycle an image, and when Chelsea read her piece, and she mentioned, like, the doctor looking with that thing in the throat, and the seedlings greening, and then the spit becoming dew. And I thought about how the little kids at my apartment block were playing the poor kids game, with spit for broth and leaves for, because they didn't have like teapots and ceramics. So how do what spit can do in a story, and then it brings out the theme and the character and everything that it's all about, and it's just something so simple as spit. And then when Chelsea came to that reading in that second paragraph, it really hit me, like, how children can use spit and what happens in a doctor's office with parasitic disease and seedlings taking over in speculative fiction. That's cool. It's something that I'm really interested in, so it's like more of a general comment for everyone. Yeah.
Um, and I'm just gonna paste a quick line from Daddy's Boy that I think resonates with that too in the chat.
Yes, spit back out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a sense of, how do we hold the overwhelming, like in Fig Wasp, like how do we confront these things? And in Daddy's Boy, right, um, the character who has engaged the protagonist in this sort of sexual encounter is really dealing with this terrifying grief that's so big, and then it's like how do you even start to deal with these things? And I think it's very interesting how like a spatial framework has played a role in many of these pieces, whether it's the dad's body being the literal place and site of the seedlings growing as kind of this metaphor that extends throughout the piece, but then also with the fig wasp, with the sense of like this room in a house, which I think is very commonplace, right? Somebody has died and the grief is so overwhelming that their room becomes like a dead room, right? A tribute to the person as they were, that is never touched again, that somebody goes in to kind of be in their grief, not to, so I think there's something really interesting about the spatial concepts. And then Relka, how you are conceiving this collection and how it coheres, I think that's also quite interesting. I've been speed reading some of our queue because it's like the end of our reading period, and I read a piece from the POV of an elevator, which was not a good piece. But I think in some way, right, it is so interesting to think that the apartment building itself, with its floors and its flats, and with each one numbered and labeled, is sort of a human stand-in that's holding humanity, but at the same time, it's so symmetrical and so architectural, it's mechanical. I think in a way it really reminds me of your piece, Karen, where we're struck by this very square, and like I love the dark blue, sort of almost like sky reminiscent space, that these wild and discarded things are just scattered upon, in this pattern that I think the more we look at it, it seems almost like a pattern, but almost not. right? I think it's
Right.
just perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. And also about buildings, they, by their nature, they reflect society, our cultural constraints, right? And they're very 3D, so they often don't allow for an uplift. So to, to have an uplift, open space is good. Yeah. 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 I want to tell you, you were from Romania, right? And
Yes, Miss Karen, yes.
yes, yes. And several years ago, I'm a former journalist. I went to Croatia, and to Bosnia, maybe 15 years after they dropped their communism and tried to be democratic, and it was very much a struggle. But I remember those same kinds of buildings and people, and it's just the flavors. A lot of people crammed into one room and trying to survive. In this case, wars, the Bosnian War and stuff, very intense. So it's a time in history that most of us in the Western world aren't that familiar with. Certainly me in California, San Francisco. I mean, I know because I'm a journalist, right? But uh,
Yes.
yeah, it's an important time to write about because that was a very pivotal, transformative time in the communist countries. It was huge, right?
Yes.
And not everybody was happy about it. I remember old women telling me they were pissed that they didn't have their government housing anymore. They were pissed. They couldn't afford cigarettes. I mean, just so like it's an incredible time in history. Yeah.
With calibration, it's always that time that like catches like almost like cram with the door, and it's not
Yes.
easy.
Yeah.
Transitions are periods of calibration, so everybody feels them differently. But yeah, but
Yeah.
Romania fought a bloody revolution. We were kind of the last ones to drop the shackles, and it was tough for
Right.
us. And I was little, but I remember a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm. Crazy. Very, very good. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. I really appreciate your creative work, your attention. It's been such a pleasure to work with you throughout this process. Some of our editors had to work or had other commitments, so they couldn't be here. But Jess, I know that, and Relica, that's right. I know that Nick, he had to work, but he mentioned to me how much of a pleasure it was to work with both of you on the issue. So yeah, thank you all so much. Please keep in touch. You are now part of our Chestnut community. So if you do have good news to share, if you get a story published or a work published, our socials are happy to shout them out. And then sometimes we have opportunities that come up. So we really appreciate you. And thank you so much to the staff and the eds that were here today.